Joseph, betrayal and redemption. The sun rose over the rolling hills of Canaan, casting a golden glow over the land. Among the flocks of sheep, Joseph walked with youthful energy, his coat of many colors flowing behind him. He had been blessed with dreams, visions of greatness that foretold his destiny. But his brothers, filled with envy, saw only arrogance in his words.
As days passed, their jealousy turned into a dangerous plot. His brothers went to pasture his father's flock near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "Are your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? I will send you to them." And he said, "Here I am." So he said, "Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and the flock, and bring me word." So he sent from the valley of Hebron to Shechem.
And a man found him wandering in the fields. And the man asked him, "What are you seeking?" "I'm seeking my brothers," he said. "Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock." And the man said, "They have gone away, for I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they planned to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood, throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hands to restore him back to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore. And they took him and threw him in the pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat to eat. And looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels bearing gum, balm, myrrh on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother, flesh and blood." And his brothers listened to him. Then Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. They took Joseph to Egypt. Life in Egypt. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So he left in Joseph's care everything he had. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story. "That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When his master heard the story his wife told him, saying, 'This is how your slave treated me,' he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. Even in chains, Joseph's spirit remained unbroken. His gift for interpreting dreams soon gained attention. When Pharaoh was troubled by a mysterious vision, 7 fat cows devoured by 7 lean ones, Joseph was summoned from the dungeon. With divine wisdom, he revealed its meaning. 7 years of abundance would be followed by 7 years of famine. Pharaoh, awestruck, elevated Joseph to the highest position in the land, second only to himself. Draped in royal garments, Joseph was now governor of Egypt, overseeing the nation's survival, reunion, and redemption. After 7 years, the famine started, just as Joseph had predicted. No plants grew, but the people in Egypt didn't go hungry because they could eat the food that Joseph had stored. But far away where Joseph's family lived, they hadn't stored any food. They hadn't known a famine was coming. Joseph's father and his sister and his brothers and their wives and children were starving. "Let's go to Egypt," one brother said. "I heard they have food." His brothers made the long journey to the land of Egypt, walking on the same road that Joseph had walked as a slave all those years ago. When the brothers got to Egypt, they went to the Pharaoh's governor, the man who was in charge of all of the food. They bowed down low in front of him, saying, "Please, sir, let us buy food for our families. We are starving." Thus it was that the dream Joseph had told them about all those years before, the dream of the 11 sheaves of corn bowing down before Joseph's sheaf, had finally come true. But the brothers didn't know the Pharaoh's governor was their brother Joseph. They hadn't seen him in more than 20 years. He'd grown up and was wearing different clothes. He'd changed. He'd changed on the inside too. He had forgiven his brothers for selling him into slavery, and he was happy to see them again. He could tell his brothers had changed as well. They were worried about their father, and they took good care of Joseph's younger brother Benjamin, and they were sorry for what they'd done. They didn't hate Joseph anymore. So Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph, your brother." And they were amazed and worried that he would be angry with them and put them in jail or kill them. But Joseph said, "I forgive you. I welcome you. Bring our father and all your wives and children to Egypt and live here with me." So Jacob and his children and their children came to Egypt, and the entire family was together again. The family was restored, and Joseph's journey, marked by betrayal, suffering, and ultimate redemption, stood as a testimony to God's perfect plan. As the sun set over Egypt, the brothers stood together once more, no longer divided by jealousy, but united by forgiveness and faith.